Latest live stream. Hope everybody's having a good evening so far. We do have a lot to talk about though in terms of Tropical Storm Nicole. I've been kind of mentioning throughout the day today, if you follow me on Twitter, I've been mentioning that this is going to be something that's a bit more impactful than what people might think. It is a tropical storm and it does not look like the most organized system ever, but it is going to bring some pretty substantial impacts to Florida, and it does include the potential for storm surge, flooding rain, as well as winds upwards of 90 to 100 miles per hour in terms of wind gusts are definitely going to be possible, especially near the coastline. And we also have the latest 10 p.m. advisory update. And as you might know, before when we covered Ian, it used to be an 11 p.m. advisory. We're now up to 10 p.m. advisories due to the change in time. We are now falled back an hour. So that's why there's an advisory now at 10 p.m. Eastern instead of 11 p.m. So we just got that in right now. I'm going to give you the latest details on what just happened here in the last several minutes. But before we get too far into this, make sure to hit the like button down below and make sure to subscribe if you've not already. Let's first get into what's going on right now. And this is a 6-hour loop of Tropical Storm Nicole and its infrared imagery, and we are seeing a decent amount of convection. Nothing too crazy though, nothing comparison to Ian by any means in terms of deep thunderstorm activity or anything like that, but it does have a fairly defined circulation here. Again, a couple hundred miles just to the northeast right now of the Bahamas. There are hurricane warnings already in effect for those in the Bahamas, so areas over there, make sure you're being mindful of that. But also, not just that, but we're going to also have hurricane warnings in effect up and down the east coast of Florida. It includes a pretty large area like West Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie, goes all the way back up near Daytona Beach as of now. In the latest advisory update, I don't think that has changed. Let me just double check real quick. Again, we just got our latest advisory as we went on the air, so I want to kind of give you some updates on that. There are some notable updates with that as well. So as of now, I'm not seeing any updates on the warnings. We'll have that here in a moment, so if there are any, I'll give you an update. The biggest change here in the latest advisory is that now Nicole is a tropical storm still, but winds have increased from 65 miles per hour to 70 mile per hour winds. So this could become not just a category 1 hurricane upon landfall, but it might even be somewhat on the maybe stronger end than what was already forecasted. The current forecast from at least the 7 p.m. and 4 p.m. advisories was 75 mile per hour winds for the peak sustained winds. It could get upwards of 80 to 85 over the next 24 hours as it continues to move off to the west. Ocean waters are still in the low 80s, so there's plentiful amount of warm water to be able to fuel this tropical storm up as well to potentially get to a hurricane as early as, again, tomorrow morning. So we got to watch this pretty closely. Some of the outer bands are already being felt across Florida as well. If we go over to the live radar feed, we'll go ahead and bring that up, and let's take off the infrared real quick. And let's kind of give you a comparison on that. So here's the outer bands. We've had a couple of showers. More than anything, the initial showers back up near Daytona Beach and a couple of downpours were not from the outer bands, but we are having some of these outer bands now moving inland kind of further down to the south near Palm Bay in Miami. So again, some of the outer bands are already beginning to arrive. We've had wind gusts upwards along the coastline of 50 miles per hour, I believe has been our highest wind gust that has been at least reported as of recently. Back near Port St. Lucie, we had a report recently. Let's go and take a look at that. So 46 miles per hour was our most recent wind gust over in Walton, so just in St. Lucie County area. We also had some wind gusts earlier today back up near Jacksonville and along the coastline that have been upwards of 50 miles per hour. Again, we are starting to see wind gusts starting to pick up, and wind gusts could again get upwards of 90 to 100 miles per hour tonight. Let's kind of give you an idea of what we're expecting over the next several hours and as well as over the next 24 to 40 hours. Let's go over to this screen and we'll give you an idea on the full breakdown in this forecast. Again, this will be somewhat of a forecast as well for this segment. So let me give you an idea of what's happening nationwide. Then we'll dive in really specifically into Tropical Storm Nicole. But I kind of want to give you the idea of what's happening right now across the United States, because if you didn't watch today's video, there's some interesting features that are happening. One, on obviously we got Tropical Storm Nicole down into the Atlantic Ocean. This will eventually move inland to Florida over the next 24 to 36 hours. We have a high pressure system that is back up here, and a lot of people have been asking me, why is this going towards Florida? Because we had, systems earlier this year, I can't remember, I think it was Fiona, that ended up going out to sea, and it never impacted the United States. It hit Puerto Rico pretty hard, but it went out to sea, and it never really came anywhere close to Florida. But why is this one taking such a direct path toward Florida? Well, the big answer to that is the jet stream. The jet stream is way over here. It is not impacting this system whatsoever. The high pressure system back up in the northeast United States is actually directing it more to the north or west and north, so it's actually taking that path. But over the next several days, that's going to change. This will still make landfall in Florida without a a doubt at this point. The only difference is we have a trough that'll be building up back over here in the northern portions of the United States. And again, why am I mentioning this? Well, this is going to be attached to that jet stream, and eventually the jet stream will start making this, basically this low pressure system, go flying up the north or up the east coast. So that's the big reason on why we're going to see this all of a sudden just take a huge turn to the northeast, and why it's going towards Florida to begin with, because the high pressure system built over New England is the reason why this is going to initially go to the west, and then it'll turn back out to the north and east once that jet stream finally picks it up, which will not be until about Thursday. So, and then you can kind of see here by about Friday or so, it starts to really quickly move off to the northeast, and a bunch of rain will be coming to the northeast heading into this weekend. Next week, it will start to dry out across that area with another high pressure system building in. Again, long term, it's kind of a question mark after basically Monday or Tuesday. But one thing we know for sure, by the way, and this is something I want to mention, even though it's not related to Nicole, we're going to have a huge cold blast next week. Almost the entire United States right now through Monday through next Friday. So the entire next work week, we are forecasted to see below average temperatures across a large area of the United States. And this is pretty crazy because, again, I mean, you can see, again, this is from the Climate Prediction Center, pretty much all below average temperatures is expected across a large portion of the United States next week. We also have a winter storm. If you want more details on this, you can check out my forecast today. We're going to have a winter storm back up in the northern plains. That's from that trough that I just mentioned that's kind of controlled with that jet stream that will eventually bring Nicole off to the north and east. And then snowfall totals could get upwards of 2 feet in North Dakota. Again, today's forecast is closer to about 18 inches. It seems like it's gone up a little bit since then. And then the cold blast I mentioned, again, we're going to have above average temperatures throughout the rest of this week. Cold blast will arrive this weekend to a large area of the United States. And then by next week, we'll not have just one cold blast, but potentially a secondary cold blast start to fill in across the United States, and potentially even a third cold blast. So again, we're starting to get not just closer to winter, but we're also seeing a much more frequent amount of cold blasts, it looks like, at least heading into this weekend and early next week. All right, let's talk about the tropics. Obviously that's probably what you're here for. Let's talk about what's going on with Nicole as of right now. This is the latest 10 p.m. advisory. Now, I want to check one detail real quick because this is kind of important. The latest discussion just came out. And so the latest update is still the maximum sustained winds that is being forecasted on landfall is 75 miles per hour. I can't rule out it gets up to 80. Again, it's already up to 70 miles per hour right now. Tropical Storm Nicole is only 5 miles per hour, or 4 miles per hour technically, from becoming a Category 1 hurricane. So it's getting very close at this point. The latest advisory just came out from the National Hurricane Center. And again, currently we are looking at a ongoing Tropical Storm Nicole. So it's going to be moving off to the west over the next little while. Again, hurricane as of now, it will make landfall most likely as a hurricane, Category 1 hurricane, sustained winds near 75 miles per hour going into the overnight hours Wednesday. So again, that'll be kind of somewhere time probably around midnight, between midnight to 3 in the morning, probably the best chance at this point, closer to areas along the coastline. So that's what we're looking at as of now for those along the east coast of Florida. There's no updates, it looks like, for now in terms of the hurricane warnings, but we do actually have new tropical storm watches that have actually just been issued along the west coast of Florida. And not just that, it goes all the way back up into South Carolina. So this will bring some impacts over that direction. Long term with this system, it's going to impact Florida most likely for at least a couple of days. By Friday, this will start racing off to the northeast, so it will eventually go towards areas like New England. So that's going to be the long-term forecast with the system as of now. Storm surge is expected to be pretty substantial still. We're talking about 3 to 5 feet of storm surge most likely along the coastline. Let me just make sure it's on screen. Yep. So 3 to 5 feet right along the east coast of Florida. If you're back down near Miami, still right around 1 to 4 feet across that region as well, from about North Palm Beach back through the Honadale Beach. We're still talking about 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. And even on the west coast of Florida, since this system will be crossing potentially into the Gulf of Mexico, we could even see some storm surge right along the west coast of Florida. So if you know anybody along the west coast of Florida, give them a heads up, because obviously this is not something that you want to see. And a lot of people probably don't know that they'll get storm surge yet across the west coast of Florida, because they're thinking this is making landfall over here, but that's not just the case. This is again going to probably cross across the state and eventually potentially bring some storm surge to areas along the west coast of Florida into the peninsula. So panhandle, excuse me. So this will definitely be something to watch here pretty closely. This is another look at the infrared imagery here over the last few hours. It's just about a 2 or 3 hour loop. Again, there's not a whole lot of convection with this. It is pretty close to the Bahamas. The Bahamas are right here. So again, it's not that far away from it. We're still seeing it spin right now. Again, not too much convection. It's nothing in comparison to Ian, but it will still bring these pretty similar impacts to what we did see, not with Ian specifically, but we will probably still at least see some pretty substantial rainfall. Wind gusts will probably be pretty high as well. again, this is definitely something that you still want to be taking pretty seriously as this continues to move closer to the Florida coast. Most computer models are indicating that this will still be probably right around a category 1 stage, right around like basically the border mark. The one thing to note though is that the winds have definitely increased over the last little while, so we are a little bit higher than this initial starting point. I think it's up to 60 knots now if I'm not mistaken. So again, we are probably still going to get to that category 1 stage and it'll eventually drop off. It may re-strengthen a little bit in terms of the wind gusts and wind speeds over land, but it's pretty low, and that would be right along the east coast once it starts to race off to the northeast. And this is a pretty good diagram of it. This is the spaghetti models. It gives you an idea of all the different computer models onto one graphic indicating on where the system will eventually head in terms of Tropical Storm Nicole. Most of them have it making landfall somewhere right along the east coast of Florida, somewhere in between about the Melbourne area back through about Port St. Lucie seems to be the likelihood of where this will make landfall. I think 24 hours ago is slightly further south, so all the computer models have shifted these like the little smallest bit to the north at this point. On the other hand, we're still talking about this potentially going maybe closer to the Gulf of Mexico. It will still bring some storm surge again to those areas right along the Panhandle, potentially as well as along the west coast, and eventually it will race off to the northeast. Again, it may re-strengthen just a little bit back over closer to like the mid-Atlantic region, maybe by 5 to 10 miles per hour. Will not be too big of a difference, but definitely something to still be mindful of, as we could still see some isolated to scatter power outages up that direction. All right, so what's the rainfall totals for the next several days? This is, again, nothing in comparison to Ian in terms of rainfall. However, we do not need rain in Florida. The St. Johns River is already at a flood stage. And by the way, St. Johns River is huge. It goes through Jacksonville, goes all the way back down through portion, or closer to Palm Bay, I believe it is how far this river goes down to the south. It's a pretty big river. So we have to be pretty concerned about the rainfall that we're going to see out of this and the storm surge. The storm surge is not something you want to see. Again, it's going to be upwards of 5 feet closer to areas like Jacksonville. And that's where the St. Johns River goes into the ocean. So we have to be very mindful of this because, again, St. Johns River is still at flood stage. It's not something that you want to see as we have another tropical storm or potential hurricane coming towards Florida. However, we're still talking about rainfall totals to not be anywhere in comparison to what we saw with Ian, but we are going to probably still at least see across Florida 1 to 4 inches of rain with higher amounts possible. We could see upwards of 8 inches in a couple of isolated locations, but most areas along the East Coast are going to be between about 3 to 6 inches. West Palm Beach is currently forecasted to be the highest, actually, which I'm actually a little bit surprised by, but that is, again, going to be probably the trend here. We'll probably see several inches of rain, and by the way, Southeast Florida saw almost no rain with Ian, so it's going to be a completely different change for those areas. Wind gusts, this is a big question mark in terms of, you know, are you, like, for those that are wondering, like, this is a big question. How high will my winds be in my location? This is a pretty good estimate. This is the HRR model. So let's begin with noon tomorrow. Right around 12 o'clock, we'll have wind gusts getting upwards of 35 to 50 miles per hour along the immediate coastline for areas like West Palm Beach, all the way back up through Jacksonville. And Jacksonville will already begin to have those tropical storm force winds. Again, this wind field is enormous. It is a huge wind field. It's going to possibly cover a large portion of Florida, probably at least the entire peninsula of Florida, maybe even parts of the Panhandle as well. It's going to be, again, a very large wind field that we're seeing with Tropical Storm Nicole. I'll show you again that here in just a second as well. But eventually by 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, this will start to get pretty close to the coastline. We're going to see wind gusts getting upwards of 50 to 60 miles per hour for the 4 major cities from Daytona Beach along the Space Coast back through the Treasure Coast. Right around 45 to 65 miles per hour will be your wind gusts by 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. By 9 o'clock, it really starts to ramp up. We could get wind gusts between 60 to maybe even 70 miles per hour. I can't rule out a couple of wind gusts getting upwards of 80 to maybe even 90 miles per hour. It's not out of the question at this point, right along the east coast of Florida. By midnight, this is expected to make landfall most likely around then. Location of where this makes landfall in this model is, again, just kind of estimated. But if it were to make landfall around Port St. Lucie, we're going to have the highest wind gusts being just off to the north of that. So Palm Bay, again, could get upwards of 80 to 90, as well as Daytona Beach getting upwards of 60 to 70. Orlando, even inland, is still going to be getting upwards of 50 to 60. So that could impact the theme parks region across Central Florida. Definitely be something to be mindful of. Miami, I know some of you guys live in Miami. Not going to see any major impacts from this in terms of the winds. It will get upwards of maybe 30 to 40. You will probably at least still see tropical storm force winds, but it will not be major. It's not going to be any major impacts, it looks like right now, for Miami. Along the coast, though, for storm surge is definitely still possible, but it shouldn't be too bad. By 6 a.m. heading into Thursday, still we're talking about wind gusts still being pretty high. Again, Florida is not that huge of a state in terms of the width, so it is still interacting with some water on the west side of this, and as well as still on the east side of this. Not a whole lot, but it's still interacting a little bit, so we'll still have wind gusts upwards of 50 to 60. And then again, HRR model kind of picks this up and says it's going to go into the Gulf of Mexico, and a lot of computer models have kept this slightly further off to the north, which even if it still stays inland completely, we will not see this big of a change over the 24 or 48 hour period, but we will probably still see areas back up even into the panhandle of Florida between 40 and 50 mile per hour wind gusts. So still something to be very well monitoring if you're up that direction as well. This is another computer model, by the way, the HRR, which is typically pretty accurate, I would say so myself. Again, we're talking about rainfall totals across Florida still to be between 1 to probably 4 inches of rain, at least in the peninsula of Florida. And again, we could see isolated amounts as high as 8 inches. It is not out of the question by any means. So this is another duplicate of that model. So yeah, that's what we're looking at in terms of the forecast. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the chat. Let me go back over to this screen. We actually have a few live cams tonight as well. Let me kind of bring those up real quick. So I got a live cam on this screen. This is a live cam out of the Titusville area. So again, it just gives an sign. This isn't really that great of a live cam, but it gives you an idea at least of what it looks like in terms of the winds out there right now. So we are starting to see the little sign there swaying a little bit. And also back over closer to Cocoa, Florida, which is along the East Coast, does not seem to be working right now. I think it actually went out. The winds have been picking up in that area, so they might have gone out. But that's what we got going as of right now. Let's go back over to this screen and let's turn this off and let me go back over to here. Let's put this back in a loop for now. All right, let's get back to some chat questions. Again, the latest update from the National Hurricane Center, again, is that this is now up to a 70 miles per hour in terms of the tropical storm. Again, it's 5 miles per hour away from becoming a Category 1 hurricane. It is forecasted to bring wind gusts upwards of 90 miles per hour near the center of this, which again is currently forecasted to make landfall somewhere between about West Palm Beach back through about the Melbourne area near Palm Bay. So those are the areas, again, that we're going to probably see us make landfall most likely. Alrighty. How's everybody doing, by the way, tonight? How's everybody doing? That was a lot of talking. Is there any chance that the remnants could hit West Virginia? Yeah, it's definitely possible, but I wouldn't expect that much. Probably just rain for you anyways. Also, we're only 19 likes for 100. If you have not already, hit the like button. All right. Also, I have a possibility that I'll be doing a storm chasing stream tomorrow. It's possible. I'm not 100% sure on it yet, but it is possible. So just a little heads up. I might do one. We'll see. That'll be obviously tracking Nicole. So possible. Not guaranteeing it, but possible. Also, for those that are wondering, I had an LED light issue. I got an LED light though. All right. Let's see. Let me go back and scroll up a little bit more in chat here. Snow hurricane. It's honestly, it's kind of interesting, this entire system. Again, with the jet stream being so far off to the north and west, again, Nicole has obviously has full control right now of going west because the high pressure system back up in the United States. And again, if we go to a wide look at this right now, our high pressure ridge is all the way back up here right now. And then we got our jet stream way back out here to the west. So Nicole has the freedom basically to go off to the west like this because again, the winds on a high pressure system go clockwise. So we're seeing the system again, Nicole going more directly to the west right now. That is why we're at least seeing Nicole go basically directly west because the jet stream has no influence on what's going on with Nicole right now. It's a very interesting setup at this point. And it's kind of similar to what we saw almost with Dorian. If you guys remember Hurricane Dorian, had somewhat of a similar setup initially, but it wasn't obviously. Dorian actually got completely taken out to sea basically because of the jet stream. So some interesting stuff there. Oh, also, I forgot to mention this. Actually, I should have mentioned this before. We do have a potential for a few tornadoes, by the way. It's going to be a low chance, but it's not out of the question that we have a tornado potential. I did forget to mention this in the initial forecast. Let me go over to here real quick. Let's turn this off. So this is a look at the marginal. We do have a marginal threat for severe weather tomorrow. It's going to be for that potential for an isolated tornado or two. That would be from West Palm Beach all the way back up through Daytona Beach and near Jacksonville, the St. Augustine region, and all the way through Orlando, excuse me. So again, there's a possibility for a few tornadoes tomorrow. In addition to that, it will also be possible on Thursday. This is the Thursday potential back over into areas in the southeast. It goes all the way back through southern North Carolina and into northeastern Florida, Daytona Beach, Jacksonville, Savannah, Georgia, and back through south of Columbia, all included again in a marginal threat of severe weather heading into Thursday, tornadoes again possible. It's a low chance, but it's definitely not out of the question that we do have a few tornadoes in that region. Again, 2% risks when it comes to a tornado potential in hurricanes and stuff like that, and tropical storms, is typically a little bit underestimated in some circumstances. So we very well might see a few tornadoes, even though it's only a 2% chance. A few brief tornadoes are not out of the question with a tropical storm like this, even though we're kind of looking at the more of the western side right now has most of the storm activity. So that's what we'll be watching. Again, this is the current center of it right now. We're actually starting to see a little bit more convection building into the center right now. Some of these yellows starting to build up a little bit. Again, the overall, it's interesting because, again, this is not anything comparison to Ian. Ian had a lot more of these sort of colors. When we're talking about reds, dark reds, that's a lot of thunderstorm activity. But Nicole doesn't have really much of that at all, but it's still going to bring some pretty substantial impacts. Again, wind gusts are already up to 70 miles per hour, or excuse me, sustained winds are already up to 70 miles per hour. Wind gusts are almost up to 90 miles per hour already, so it's quite interesting. Hey, thank you, Mystic, for becoming a 4-month Storm Chaser member. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, tornadoes are typically weak with any given tropical storm or anything, really, even hurricanes. Even when we had the Hurricane Ian, it never really brought that much in terms of a tornado threat. It only happened the day before it made landfall. When that happened, it brought several tornadoes, but most of them were pretty weak. I mean, we had one EF2, I think. Other than that, a lot of them were EF0 or EF1 types tornadoes. So again, we're still going to have that potential that we could still see a couple of tornadoes. And again, I can't rule out a strong one, but it's typically pretty rare, even with hurricanes and tropical storms. It just doesn't happen that often. Again, the setup is not ripe for long tracked or dangerous tornadoes like what we kind of saw with the Friday tornado outbreak. Thank you, Musk, by the way, for the $2 super chat. Appreciate it. Thank you, DK, for becoming a 2-month VIP chaser. What are the chances of this going over the Florida into the Gulf? It is not high, I would say, but it is definitely kind of in that medium range right now. A lot of the computer models are bringing this kind of in this direction. There are a few that do kind of, again, when we go back over to the HRR model, let me go back over to here. This gives us kind of a good representation of that. The HRR model was the one that kind of showed that this would kind of cross over Florida. Again, this is the most southerly track that I would expect out of this. It basically goes right through Port St. Lucie towards Tampa and eventually kind of takes a turn like this over into the Florida Panhandle, so pretty close to that line. And so again, this is not an impossible thing to happen. Regardless of either scenario, we're possibly still going to see wind gusts upwards of 40 to 50 miles per hour closer to areas like the Panhandle of Florida, so it's not out of the question there. We could also see some storm surge, maybe a couple of feet. Again, there's right now a forecast from the National Hurricane Center that indicates that we'll see upwards of 2 to 4 feet of storm surge right along from the Indian Pass back through the Anclote River over near the Tampa Bay region. So we are still going to probably see some storm surge there. At this point, that's the current forecast. So we have to watch that still pretty closely. So yes, there's a possibility it goes into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, long term, will this keep going west? No, it probably will not, because that jet stream is going to start dipping further south. Therefore, this is going to start to move more off to the north and east pretty quickly, because that jet stream, again, will really control it going into most likely Thursday. So we're going to start seeing this really turn off to the northeast pretty quickly. And also, there are no computer models that bring this anywhere close to anywhere over into the, Texas area or anything like that. You don't have to be concerned about that. Again, there's no reason to be believing that. It's just not the kind of setup that we need for that sort of stuff. So again, this will not be going that far to the west. And it's very, very rare that we ever see a tropical storm go directly west into the Gulf of Mexico. It's very rare. You really need a high pressure system to be centered over the United States in a certain way, and it's very difficult for that to even happen. So yeah, it's very rare for that to happen, but yeah, that won't happen. But yeah, again, this is the current actually the HR model. I didn't realize this. 1 a.m. it actually indicates wind gusts upwards of 85 miles per hour in the Palm Bay. I did not realize that initially, but that's obviously, I kind of mentioned that's a possibility. This is just a forecasted computer model, so wind gusts could definitely still be a little bit higher than this, especially wherever it makes landfall. And again, this is just the projected landfall from the HRR model. So if it does make landfall over in Port St. Lucie, again, we're probably going to see the winds be much higher on the northern side of this, like Daytona Beach and Palm Bay. But if it makes landfall, let's just say right here over Palm Bay, wind gusts will be much higher up here, much lower down here. So it's definitely a big difference there. And you kind of see it here. The wind gusts, look at the wind field off to the north in comparison to the south side of this tropical storm. The wind field is the eye is right here. look off to the north. This is all wind up here. There's hardly anything down here in terms of at least tropical storm force winds. So it's a quite interesting setup at this point that we're looking at in terms of tropical storm Nicole. Again, it's very, very interesting. And I think I have a graphic on here. This is the current wind field, by the way. I'm going to kind of show you a very small graphic of this, but this is the wind field. You know, that's huge. If we compare that to the size of Florida, the wind field could fit over Florida and more. I mean, that's how big that the wind field is. It's enormous. I don't know if I can bring it up on the software. Let me try and see if I can do that real quick, because that'd be pretty cool if I could. Let's go over to here, and I don't think I can, but yeah, the wind field doesn't let me do that, but the wind field is enormous. I mean, if we kind of outline it here, this is the forecasted wind field right here. I'm trying to draw it on precisely here. Pretty precise. If we transfer that over to Florida, for example, if this kind of went off to the west, which again, it's not going to be this large when it makes it into Florida, but it will probably still cover a large area of the United States. If we just kind of shift this over a little bit, once it gets closer, almost the entire state of Florida will be talking about tropical storm force winds. And again, that kind of depends on where the eye is, but it is, again, quite remarkable how big this wind field is. It is, I think, about 600 miles wide, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was the estimate. I think I can actually do that on here. Let's try it. I'm not sure if it works, but we'll try it on here. It's, again, quite remarkable. It's going to start out a little bit high, but this is the current wind field. 587 miles approximately. That is enormous for a wind field. And going even north to south, let's try that real quick. Try north to south. 500 miles. Yeah, again, this wind field is enormous. And if we went diagonal, it's probably going to be much higher. But I'll do diagonal real quick if you're really curious. It's 617 miles. So, again, it is a very large wind field. And again, this is the forecasted wind field, I believe, 6 hours from now, if I'm not mistaken. So, but again, that is still a very large wind field. I know wind gusts are already being reported right along the east coast of Florida, upwards of 40 to 45. So, obviously, the impacts are already beginning to be felt a little bit closer to the coastline. But again, it is a very impressive tropical storm, to say the least. It is definitely be something to watch for very closely. It is huge, though. All right, let me get back to chat here. Sorry. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. If you have not already, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Again, we'll be keeping you updated with Tropical Storm Nicole as it makes closer impacts to Florida. Again, this will be something to watch for very closely. Are we getting questions about Missouri? This is more of a Tropical Storm Nicole stream. So again, if you have any questions about your state in terms of your forecast, go to my latest forecast today. It has like literally all the details for you. I made a 9-minute forecast today. It should have everything that you need to know about really your state. I mean, like literally it has everything. Everything from, I don't know, it literally has everything. So just make sure to go check out my forecast from today. That has a full detailed breakdown of what to expect. Literally, huge breakdown. Every state is included in that one. This is not going to become a category 3. The peak, actually, kind of an interesting statistic here. This tropical, or in Florida specifically, the 2 tropical systems that have ever made landfall in Florida in the month of November were both category 2 hurricanes. Fun fact, that's kind of crazy. Only 2 hurricanes have ever made, or really any tropical systems, have ever made landfall in Florida. And both of them in November were category 2 hurricanes. Crazy, right? I mean, that's pretty crazy. And again, this is going to most likely become a category 1 hurricane, not a category 2. Let me actually just fact check that real quick. I'm pretty sure that meant all tropical systems. So let me double check that. This is a fact that AJ Barrett, which is a meteorologist in Boston, actually posted about. And I'm curious to see if I can find that. I retweeted it on my Twitter. All right, no, only 2 hurricanes. Sorry, so 2 hurricanes ever made landfall in Florida, and we had one category 2 hurricane. It was Hurricane Yankee that made landfall in 1935 in Florida, and it made landfall near Miami Beach. And then we had Hurricane Kate make landfall in 1985 in Florida, again in November, and it made landfall November 21st at Mexico Beach, and that's back up in the Panhandle of Florida. So that's pretty crazy. Again, that's pretty remarkable. And again, both of them were category 2 hurricanes. So it is pretty crazy that we've had 2 hurricanes make landfall in Florida in the month of November, and both of them were category 2. But obviously, you know, this one could very well be just a category 1, which again, it's still going to bring its own share of impacts in comparison to the other hurricanes that we've seen in the state during this sort of time frame as well. But this is by no means a late hurricane. If it does become a hurricane, it makes landfall in Florida, which it will make landfall in Florida, but obviously beyond that, is it going to become a category 1, category 2 hurricane, that sort of thing. If it makes landfall as a category 1 hurricane, this would go down as the 3rd hurricane to ever make landfall in Florida. Again, 50-year difference in between 1935 to 1985 with the last two. This one is in 2022. You can do the math. That's like 37-ish years or something like that. So yeah, again, that was the last time we saw a hurricane make landfall in November in Florida. So definitely interesting, to say the least. Again, one made landfall at Miami Beach, one made landfall at Mexico Beach. So quite interesting, to say the least. But again, the latest update is that this is now up to a very strong tropical storm, winds up to 70 miles per hour. All right, let's go back over to the live chat. Yeah, storm surge is a big concern. Yeah, if you're along the east coast of Florida, storm surge is definitely a big concern. If you saw my photo on Twitter earlier today, again, if you're following me on Twitter, you'll see a lot of my photos and stuff like that. But over on Twitter, I did post a photo. There was already water going into part of the Daytona Beach area, kind of right along the beach region. If I can pause this real quick, let me kind of clear this out. Yeah, so right along the beach here, I think it was over here along A1A, that is where we actually already have some water coming inland. And again, that was, I believe, near high tide. So obviously, we are already starting to see that impact being felt. Even at low tide, if you looked at my Twitter today, there were some photos and videos at low tide of waves just crashing along the beaches over closer to, I believe, Stuart, Florida. So that was an area that we've already begun to see impacts there as well. So again, it's kind of crazy what we're already beginning to see out there. And I think I can actually bring one of those up. Let me go over to my Twitter page real quick. And you can kind of view this stuff as well. But this is one of the videos that we had out of Stuart. And actually, I kind of want to put on audio for this. So let me put on audio here. So this gives you a general representation in terms of the wind, at least. You can obviously hear the wind being pretty strong there along the coastline, which is a given. Again, there's nothing blocking the wind. There's no trees out here in the ocean by any means to block the wind from hitting you if you're along the beach. So yeah, obviously the waves are starting to splash there. Again, this is right along the coast. This was at low tide. Again, this was not high tide, so this was at low tide. This was also taken at the same kind of given point. I can't really zoom in on this one. You can, again, go check this out. Actually, I might be able to put it in another tab. Let me try it. I don't think I can. But again, if you want to go check this out on Twitter, you can. But this is another little one where the waves are just crashing along the coast. So again, Tropical Storm Nicole is coming. Again, that was today. That was earlier today. This is around like 4 or 5 o'clock at low tide. So you can only imagine what it is at high tide. It's probably obviously a lot worse than that along the coastline. But that's what we've seen so far. If you have any photos or videos, by the way, you can feel free to send them in to me on Twitter. I don't know if I have any others that I've seen, but those are the main couple I have seen so far. All right. Is Daytona 500 this week? Is it really? I didn't even know Daytona 500 happened this week. Actually kind of crazy. Second. All right. Hey Joshua, how you doing? Welcome back. Yeah, this isn't supposed to be a big rainmaker by any means. Yeah, Nicole will not be a major rainmaker. It's going to be definitely more of just a wind maker, if you want to call it that, but it's more gonna be along the coastline. Storm surge is obviously a big concern as well, but even though it's not gonna be a big rainmaker, again, we still have flood stage in a lot of lakes and rivers, including the St. Johns River, which is a big river in Florida. So we will likely still see a lot of that sort of deal across areas like the east coast of Florida. So again, it's not all roses and rainbows or whatever you want to call it here in Florida, because again, with the flood stage that we had from Ian, it's going to carry over now into this, because again, we still have, I believe it's minor flood stage, but even minor flood stage is still much higher than just a flood stage at all over in the St. Johns River. So we're still talking about flood stage over there, which is again pretty concerning with Tropical Storm Nicole on its way. So we still have to, be monitoring that very closely here. I didn't even know that Daytona 500 happened. It's not this week. Okay, never mind. I said that in chat. Yeah, Melinda, you'll be fine in Pensacola. Be fine. Jonathan, in this particular scenario, no. The cold front is, again, way back over here with the other trough that we're watching, and the jet stream is not going to play a part. Let me actually go back over to the other graphic. Let's do this. So we'll do this. I'm the right one. So this is the initial graphic that I was using at the beginning of this live stream. Gives you a good representation of what's happening across the United States. We've got a high pressure system here. We got our tropical storm Nicole back down and obviously near Florida right now. And then we also have our other trough that'll be building in, making that winter storm known over the northern plains here pretty soon. So with all that being said, going into the upcoming few days, again, we'll have this make landfall going into Wednesday and Thursday. We'll have our other trough back up. My light just dropped. 1 second. I apologize, my light decided to fall on my head. So that's what happens when you have a LED light that you didn't bring by accident and you have a different one. So that's what happened. All right, back over to this though. Going into Thursday, again, we'll have that trough built over portions of the northern plains back over in the Midwest. Eventually, again, that's going to be associated with the cold front. Here is your tropical storm or hurricane, whatever it is at the given time, and there is still a chance for a few tornadoes. Actually, there is a slight risk of severe weather. It's going to include like the western Midwest, basically, so Iowa, Missouri, going to be included in that potential. Again, a full breakdown on that is in my latest forecast, so make sure to go check that out. It's a video forecast here on the Max Velocity channel. Going into late Thursday into Friday, this trough starts to weaken a little bit. They start to kind of collide. There won't be really any tornado threat with this since they both kind of combined here, and again, this is kind of a situation where the temperatures will not be ripe enough even for a tornado potential. Maybe a very low one, if any, possibly near like southeast New England, but it's a very low chance, and it's not really in the right setup for even a tornado potential. If this was further west, it's not impossible, but at this point, again, this is not a situation where we're really looking at a significant tornado potential heading into any time in the near future. Other than, again, the next couple of days, the only couple of severe weather chances will be, again, across the Midwest. There's a slight risk of severe weather there, and then obviously down in the southeast, right along the east coast of Florida, and up and down the east coast all the way up to North Carolina, there is a low chance of tornadoes due to the fact that we'll probably still see some of those, brief tornadoes with the tropical storm or hurricane at the time. So that's what we're watching for more closely than anything. Also, the NAM3K model just came out. I'm curious to see what it shows for wind gusts here. Yeah, so this is the NAM3K model, which, again, a lot of computer models have been really consistent with this making landfall over Port St. Lucie. Again, wind speeds, 87 miles per hour would be pretty substantial. Again, that is likely going to happen, by the way. Wherever this does make landfall, wind gusts could get upwards of 90 miles per hour. But eventually heading into Tuesday morning, again, we're still talking about wind gusts in Florida, upwards of 60 to even potentially 70 to 80 miles per hour in some areas. NAM3K model typically keeps us much stronger, so you can take this a little bit more with a grain of salt, but it would be pretty accurate to what we'll probably end up seeing. A lot of the main computer models recently have been bringing this to at least a category 1 stage, and obviously bringing a lot of wind gusts as well along with that. I'm not sure if any other computer models have come out. Let's look at the NAM model, the regular one. Not sure if it's going to show much else different. The NAM model actually has this making landfall near West Palm Beach. So again, it's not out of the question it makes that far south of a landfall either. Then it'll go off to the northeast. Not sure if there's any others that I haven't really picked out here yet. We've looked at the European model before. It doesn't typically give you accurate results. So yeah, those are the main computer models. But yeah, HR model, again, typically going to kind of be on the right path in terms of the wind speeds, which again, 60 miles per hour, and then eventually getting closer, potentially even a little bit higher than that. I think it showed earlier, closer to, oh, we're on the right again, yeah. Showed a little bit higher than that, I thought, but I might be wrong. But yeah, still a lot of wind out of this system is expected. So I'll have to watch it again very closely, but very, very interesting to say the least. All right. Yes, I'm okay, thank you. Yeah, the light fell down right in between my monitor and my laptop, so we're good. Right in between the two. And it depends where you are at, MK. It really depends on where you're at. Because, if you're along the east coast of Florida, this will be much worse than what we saw with Ian in terms of winds. But if you're along the, if you're close to like Daytona Beach, this will be fairly similar, if not even a little bit less than what we saw with Ian. So it really depends on where you are, because the east coast of Florida, like here, for example, where it's going to make landfall, did not see the wind speeds that high. I think the highest what we saw right along the east coast there was 60 to 65 maybe. It wasn't that high. This is going to get upwards of like 80 to 90 potentially, so it's going to be higher in that regard. But if we're talking about anywhere else in Florida, it's not going to be too much different from Ian in terms of the wind gusts or wind speeds. So no, Michigan is not seeing this as a tropical storm now. Hey, thank you, Mix, by the way, for the $2 super chat. Yeah, it's interesting. Again, Ian happened not last month, the month before, end of September, and again, beginning of November, basically, and we're having another tropical storm / hurricane making landfall, which is quite crazy. Beyond this, though, there's not really much else to be watching. I mean, the tropics should be starting to wind down here. Water temperatures, if you're curious, here over areas like east of Florida are right now around 80 to 82 degrees. So it is dropping. So, you know, the potential for any more tropical storms or hurricane threats is going to keep dropping over the next few weeks. And obviously, by the end of November, we shouldn't be really dealing with that potential that much. Water temperatures over the northern Gulf in this area are only in the upper 70s, which hence is why even if this does go into the Gulf of Mexico, it's not going to strengthen much because, again, the water temperatures here are in like the upper 70s. I think it's like 78, 79. Again, 80 degrees or higher is typically what you need for a tropical storm or hurricane. So it will still maintain some strength, but it's not going to be that, it won't really strengthen much over the Gulf of Mexico due to that big characteristic that the temperatures, again, water temperatures will not be overly warm to be able to support maybe a tropical storm or hurricane developing over there. So kind of a couple big differences there. I doubt it, Florida. I doubt it. Broward County probably will not be impacted that deeply by this in terms of at least this shifting that far south. I doubt it. Furthest south I see this making landfall will be West Palm Beach. Furthest north I see this making landfall is Palm Bay. So you can kind of take your pick. I honestly think that this will make landfall most likely near the Port St. Lucie area. And again, I will be storm chasing most likely tomorrow, at least during the afternoon hours. I won't be at night because it's, there's no point if I don't have good lighting. So again, I'll probably do a little storm chasing stream tomorrow in Florida. That's my plan. I've never done one before. I'm gonna have to at least test it before I even do it, but I do plan on it, and we'll kind of go around and see what's happening. In terms of the winds, obviously winds will begin to pick up tomorrow afternoon across the east coast of Florida, and then from there I might do a live stream on Thursday as well. I have more of a plan to do a live stream on Thursday than Wednesday in terms of storm chasing, so that's my plan for right now. The starting time will probably be 1 or 2 p.m. is most likely going to be the starting time. And my plan currently is actually to go closer to the Port St. Lucie area. So that's kind of what I'm thinking right now in terms of where to storm chase. So that's probably what I'll do tomorrow. But again, not 100% guaranteeing you that, but likely. I need to get the right camera thing for my car, so I'll have to do that first. But yeah, again, plan is to go closer to the area where this probably will make landfall. So we'll do a little chasing stream tomorrow. Probably will not be too long. It'll be like 2 or 3 hours, most likely up until around sunset. But we'll kind of take a drive around, kind of give you an idea of what's happening there. And then again, Thursday will be the bigger day, kind of assessing the damage and stuff like that. I'll have a much longer live stream, most likely on Thursday. So Thursday will be driving around a lot more. So again, if you want to give me gas money, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, I'll do a little bit of a couple of streams there. We'll see what happens. Couple of streams. Again, I will not be doing a night stream though I might do a night stream on terms of coverage if I have power, but if I don't, then I will not have a night stream tomorrow. But we'll see what happens. But I do plan on streaming at least a couple of times on quote unquote storm chasing. So yeah, you're good, Jelly. Hey, if you can always watch it back if you want. Storm chasing is a little bit more interesting if you watch it back. It can be a little bit more interesting. Because watching this tomorrow at 5 p.m. is going to be kind of useless, but if you watch a storm chasing live stream the day after it happens, it's actually not the worst thing ever. It's actually can be still somewhat entertaining. So I say somewhat. It can be somewhat entertaining. Yeah, it's the plan. Plans don't always go through, but that's the plan. Hey Greta, you might see me out there. I have to get some stickers for my car. Some max velocity stickers, so if you ever see me out in the public. Pretty funny. Fort Myers or Cape Coral will be affected by this. You will, Mystic, over that direction, but again, it's not going to be significant impacts. You might see some storm surge, pretty minimalistic in comparison to Ian, but it's still notable. Rainfall could still, might see an inch or two, so nothing in comparison to Ian. But Ian will, again, this is still something to be monitoring. I think the biggest concern with this will, again, be along the East Coast, without a doubt. This is going to be the biggest concern area. Will be right along the East Coast of Florida, back through Jacksonville and all the way back down to the south. Again, that is my biggest concern right now with the St. Johns River already being in a flood stage. You know, a few inches of rain can really hamper, and as well as the storm surge can really hamper the the river there. So we have to watch that very closely, and we'll be watching it closely tomorrow. So a big concern for right now. Great, another storm for Florida. Yep, another storm coming towards Florida. Remember when Ian was coming towards Florida? I did a stream like a week before Ian even made landfall in Florida. If you guys remember that, a few of you guys might have been at that stream. First time I went live for Ian was when it was down here, I think, somewhere way south of Cuba. We were talking about it because I knew it was going to be a big system that was coming towards Florida, and obviously we watched it. You know, we were live, I think, every day that week. So. This is not a system that'll be live. I was not live every day of this week for at all. I mean, this is not a system in comparison to Ian, but it is still going to bring some pretty hefty impacts to Florida. So we have to still be prepared for it. Again, it will become most likely a Category 1 hurricane. So it will definitely be a very interesting system to watch here over the next several days for sure. It's going to be a multi-day event. It's going to be most likely impacting Florida, obviously, over the next 36 to 48 hours. But beyond there, it will still make impacts along the East Coast as well of the United States. So. Thank you, Mind, by the way, for subscribing. Appreciate it. Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it. Deltona and Deland. Gamer, you're probably going to see back up that direction more of just rain. Winds could still get upwards of 60 to 70, though. So, again, we'll probably at least see across the state of Florida tropical storm force winds for most of the state, I would expect. So, prepared for that, for sure. Prepared. Let's actually go back over to the wind gusts real quick. This is, again, I've been kind of showing this graphic a few times, but it is actually pretty interesting to look at if you're in Florida. Again, it gives you a really good solid foundation of what your wind gusts will probably be across Florida. So again, this is at 10 p.m. tomorrow night across the state of Florida at, you know, when this is about to make landfall, wherever it makes landfall. Again, it doesn't really matter if it's this far north or this far south, because again, the impacts are still to be felt across a large area of Florida. But if it were to be this far south, the wind will likely be in this area. I made that way too big. The wind, though, will probably be most likely in this large area, not a whole lot in the south end. Again, mostly wind will be on the north side of wherever the quote-unquote eye of this tropical storm / hurricane is. By about midnight tomorrow night, it's most likely to make landfall. So again, it's going to make landfall sometime during the late evening into the overnight hours. That's the current expectation of Nicole, and then eventually going into the overnight hours. Again, winds are still going to be pretty ferocious. Again, Palm Bay potentially still upwards of 80 to 85 mile per hour wind gusts, even as late as 1 to 2 in the morning. So again, be prepared for that. Power outages are definitely going to be expected across this area of Florida for sure. I mean, Palm Bay back through West Palm Beach, I would almost guarantee you're probably gonna have a pretty substantial power outages, at least scattered. I don't expect it to be, you know, widespread and long-lasting weeks of no power like what we saw with Ian across the west coast of Florida, but I would still anticipate that you'll probably see some power outages there along the east coast of Florida. And we could still see some scattered power outages across this region. So again, that would be back from St. Augustine all the way back through, I wouldn't say as far south as Miami, maybe just north of Miami though, kind of where the second line I just drew there is. So basically up here to the north and this way down to the south, at least some scattered power outages are definitely expected. And then more isolated power outages outside of there. We could see some scattered power outages depending on if this does strengthen a little bit over the Gulf of Mexico, maybe some scattered power outages across the coastline here from about Sarasota back through about the Panama City area. So that would be at least, again, my expectation for right now in terms of power outages. But again, the most significant and probably not long lasting, but again, in a couple of days is possible across this area. And if you saw my photo on Twitter, again, I've been posting a lot on Twitter today. If you saw my photo, you know, I was driving south and I literally saw several power trucks that were driving south. So obviously they are getting prepared for the system. I think they're a slogan. I can't remember what it was ready. I can't remember what the actual, you know, name of their power company was or whatever, but it was something like, I don't know. I can't remember. It was like something like First there. I don't know. I can't remember the name. It was a very clever name though. It basically referenced like being at the storm site before it even happens, that sort of thing. I can't remember the actual name for it though. It was interesting though. So yeah, that's the forecast at this point. Interesting name though. Jelly, next time I do a live stream on this, again, will probably be tomorrow chasing, and then potentially on Thursday. I do plan on doing an aftermath stream on Thursday. See what happens. Hey, Deanna, how you doing? Welcome back. How's it going? All right, sorry, I'm going to try to scroll up a little bit. I know we had a few other questions here. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the chat. I know a lot of you guys are from Florida. We're getting a lot of followers from Florida, so hopefully I'm kind of preparing you a little bit here. Again, the latest National Hurricane Center update, again, if you were not here right at 10 p.m., latest update is that this is now up to a strong tropical storm. Sustained winds are now up to 70 miles per hour. It is moving west-southwest right now at 10 miles per hour. So it is moving, again, still fairly quickly. It's a little bit quicker than Ian. So kind of in comparison there. Hurricane warnings in effect along the east coast of Florida as well. That's great, gaming. That's great. Okay, it's probably going to get upwards of a Category 1 hurricane, but beyond Category 1 hurricane, it's a bit of a question mark if it will end up getting anywhere closer to, you know, it's not going to become a Category 2 by any means, but it might become a strong Category 1. It's not out of the question. It depends on how much it strengthens overnight tonight, if it does at all. I mean, again, it's probably going to become a Category 1 hurricane by tomorrow morning. And then by tomorrow afternoon and evening, it's, again, a bit of a question mark whether this will get upwards of a stronger Category 1 hurricane or not. Depends on if it strengthens overnight tonight. Not a single commuter model brings this to a Category 2 or anything like that. But I can't rule out that it does get a little bit stronger than it already is. Again, we saw with Ian, for example, you know, most of the computer models were saying Category 3 or low-end Category 4 upon landfall. It ended up being almost a Category 5 hurricane upon landfall. So I wouldn't rule this out that it gets closer to maybe a stronger Category 1, but I'm not saying this is going to become anything worse than that. I don't expect it to be a Category 2 or anything like that. Lakeland. I don't know where Lakeland is. Let me look that up real quick. 1 second. Oh, that's near Winter Haven. Isn't that like Orlando? You will probably see more wind gusts more than anything, maybe a couple inches of rain. So I'd be more concerned about maybe wind gusts up to 50. So tropical storm force winds possible there. Caden, no. I mean, this one's strengthened over land, really. It might maintain its entire strength, depending on if it kind of crosses a state like this. It could maintain some of its strength, but it's going to still weaken over time over land. I mean, again, it's not really interacting with water enough. It is interacting with water a little bit, since we have, obviously, the Gulf waters, and then we also have the waters on the East Coast that are both in play. So, obviously, if you're over here, like, you know, the waters are much warmer over here. We're talking about low 80s right now, upper 70s in the northern Gulf of Mexico. So there isn't really much in the Gulf of Mexico for this to strengthen or even maintain its strength that much over land. Again, the water temperatures here are in the upper 70s. That is not supportive enough for tropical storm development. So it will most likely still kind of maintain its strength, if not weaken, as if it were to go into the Gulf of Mexico or even stay over land. So it's an expectation again at this point. No problem. I know a lot of schools, by the way, are closed in Florida, so there's a bunch. Tim, Tampa area, probably going to see possibly a foot or two of storm surge, so if you're on the immediate coast, might be concerning. Obviously, stay away from beaches, but on the other hand, not a whole lot is expected in Tampa. Maybe some wind gusts up to 50 to 60, if this does make it that far to the west. Other than that, I wouldn't expect anything too substantial there at this point. Definitely be something to monitor more than anything in terms of the wind gusts, because that'll probably be your biggest threat at this point, which isn't that big of a threat, but something to be watching for at least. Is Disney closing? I didn't hear that. I have no clue if they are, though. I haven't heard it officially. I know they were closing some resort. Thanks, Mystic, for the $2 super chat. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas. That's a great Christmas gift. That'll get me a whole candy bar at a convenience store. Maybe some gas money for tomorrow, though. Gas in Florida is up to like almost $4 again. It's crazy. So can't wait to storm chase tomorrow and have to pay $4 a gallon for gas. I think that's at least what it is now. It was like $3.60 when I filled up today. So that's still expensive. By the way, is my stream blurry at all? I haven't really looked at my stream, but is it like blurry with this playing? I'm just curious. Yeah, look at my stream. It does look kind of blurry, doesn't it? Like, my face cam at least looks blurry. I gotta fix that. I don't know how you fix that exactly. It does look a little bit blurry, though. I gotta fix that somehow. It's a little bit blurry. I need to fix that. That happened on my other stream. When I have this loop going, if I don't have it going, it's not really that blurry. Let me stop it like right here, for example. Let me go back to my stream. It does not look that blurry at all at this point, like here, right? Or it doesn't look as blurry. Yeah, it doesn't look as blurry. So yeah, it's like when it's in a loop, it's a little bit more blurry. I gotta figure that out though. Might be my resolution. I have no clue. Good to test it though. Let's do this. $5.50 in Florida per gallon. Holy mo, or in California. Crap. $5.50. I can't imagine paying that much for gas. That's so much. The most I've ever paid is like $4.30-ish. I think. Is there a chance of tornadoes around the Daytona or D-Land area? Yes, there's a chance, but it's pretty low. Again, it's like that 2% probability, so it's a very low brief tornado potential. So, no, it's not my monitor. My monitor isn't blurry. It has nothing to do with my monitor. It has more to do with my bitrate, I think. I think my face cam's a little bit blurry, though. Kind of annoying. It like buffers a little bit more than anything. Man, some money for a whole chocolate bar. There you go. That chocolate bar might last a month. Depending on how special it is. Lord. Alright, let me do this real quick. Yeah, again, my plan is tomorrow I'll do a little stream storm chasing. I'll try it out at least. I do have to buy a camera thing at the store though, which I'll do tomorrow morning. I gotta fill up my tank of gas for tomorrow as well. So that's my plan at this point. I will need to though, I will have to somehow figure out how to do streaming on my phone. I don't know how to do that. I'll have to figure that out tonight. So that's my plan. And I'll be doing a little storm chasing stream most likely tomorrow. I'll at least try it out. Thursday is when I actually want to do a more serious, I would say, stream. Not really, I won't say it's serious, but I want to do more like a longer stream of doing like, you know, damage and stuff like that around the Palm Bay through West Palm Beach area. Just kind of, you know, evaluating some of the damage that we saw from this potential hurricane. It'll be kind of interesting to see the aftermath and whatnot. This is, again, not in comparison to Ian by any means, but we'll definitely be able to kind of look around and see what damage is in certain areas and all that sort of stuff. Maybe even go to the beach if it's a little bit safer by then. Don't know if it will be by Thursday, but maybe Friday. So, plan for right now. So yeah, if you want to check that out, again, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the like button, turn on post notifications as well. Would appreciate it. $3.49 a gallon in Port St. Lucie. I don't even know. I think I paid like $3.60. I don't remember where it was, but I paid $3.60 earlier today. Remember when I was paying like $2.80 last month in Florida? They had like this Florida tax. They took off like 25 cents a gallon or something, but that's obviously gone. Stay off the road if you're in Florida, yeah. Hey, if you're in Florida, stay off the road tomorrow and Thursday. There's a bunch of crazy drivers during these sort of things. Experienced it firsthand. Yeah, I'm just chilling at this point. Again, we kind of went over all the tropical stuff, but yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to pop those in the chat. But you have 2 days off for this? I have 3 days off for this. 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I have all 3 days off. It's nice, but I have 3 tests next week, so I don't expect to go live at all next week, almost regardless of what happens in terms of weather. I have a lot of studying to do, so after Thursday, I am going to be in full study mode, so, and possibly, I might go live for a little bit on Friday, but that would be just aftermath stuff, so. I have no days off. Well, that's unfortunate. I mean, if you're in Florida, you probably have days off, depending on where you are. Yeah, I have 2 exams next week. I have an essay due on Monday. So yeah, again, it'll be full study mode next week. And then after that, I can chill a little bit more. Thanksgiving break, I have plans. I will have ability to do a live stream if I need to. I'm not doing a live stream on Thanksgiving, even if there was to be an outbreak or something like that, because I just would not be able to. But yeah, again, I'll be making forecasts on the regular. If there's any live streams I have to do during Thanksgiving break, it's possible, but it's probably more likely than I'll do any. December is pretty open. After final exams in December, I'll be having some full availability for most of that month and into January, which they're pretty quiet months typically in terms of severe weather, but there might be, you know, some winter storm action or something. So, plan for right now. Long term, who knows, but I know next semester there's a lot of hard classes I'm taking, so the hope is to go live for almost all severe weather events, but I just don't know if I'll be able to, depending on what happens. Some of the big events, I probably won't go live for too often if somebody else is streaming them, just to kind of, save myself a little bit on, at least if there's obviously important homework I have to do and stuff like that, I'll do that, but who knows? That's long term, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Jacksonville, Florida specifically is probably going to see more of a wind gust threat. And if you're along the immediate coast, again, storm surge definitely possible. Again, upwards of 5 feet is possible. But Jacksonville, I'll be more concerned right now. Storm surge 1, rain not too concerning, but 3 to 5 inches, isolated spots higher is possible. And then wind gusts getting upwards of 50 to 55, maybe 60 if it goes further north. But Shelly, I appreciate it. We'll see. Yeah, I might need somebody to proofread it. We'll see. Where do you think the worst of the severe weather will be on Thursday? Let me show you real quick. Let's go up here and find where that is. There we go. This is the current outlook. But honestly, the greatest tornado threat that I see, if there really is going to be a high tornado threat, which there is, obviously there isn't, but if there were to be like the highest potential for a tornado threat, it'll probably be located somewhere in here. That would be my kind of expectation at this point. But obviously be prepared in any of those areas. I might go live Thursday. Since I don't have classes anymore, I probably on Thursday actually would go live for the severe weather initially. I'll do a little chasing stream probably at least on Thursday or Friday for aftermath stuff, but yeah, I might change that a little bit because if there's actually notable severe weather, I'll go live for that for sure. We'll see what happens. We're playing it day by day at this point. We'll see what happens. Yeah, that'll be something to be notable of. Again, I'll probably do a live stream on that, so make sure, again, you're subscribed and have notifications on, because I actually might go live for that instead of doing an aftermath stream on Thursday. Let me figure out the timing first on that, though. Let me look real quick. I don't know what the timing is exactly going to be over in that region. Not sure if I can get that far out yet. Pretty sure it's going to be Thursday afternoon, though. Yeah, it's more of a Thursday afternoon sort of threat. Where it all sets up to, it feels like it's going to be a little bit further east, so we will see. We will see. I think again, it's going to depend on what's more important at that point. We'll see. Tornado parameter and whatnot. It seems like that threat will be like during the late morning, early afternoon, and it kind of diminishes pretty quickly. So if there's anything notable during like the late morning, I might go live for it, but it's a pretty short-term threat anyways. Zach, it's currently a strong tropical storm. It is a couple of miles, it's like 4 miles per hour from a Category 1 hurricane. Looking at us right now. There's audio problems. Is there audio problems? Anybody else having audio problems? Yeah. That's the right microphone. Unless there's like a little bit of buffering, which is possible, but who knows, Chuck? Who knows? I've gotten one job offer before, but I declined it. That was before I even went to college. That was when I was doing North Texas Weather Center. Funny enough. I sound fine. Cool. No, you're good, okay. Yeah, I got a job offer before college, but I didn't take it. That was before I had much of a following on. I had like a following on Facebook. It was like 6,000, I think, at the time, or 10,000, whatever that came. But why doesn't the hurricane go towards the warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico? The waters aren't even that warm in the Gulf of Mexico. They're in like the upper 70s. That's warm, but it's not warm to the point where a tropical storm or hurricane really can survive that type of environment, or really strengthen at least with it. It can still maintain its strength a little bit if it went into the Gulf of Mexico. But it's not going to be that strong, again, due to the fact that, again, these waters up here, 77 to 79 range. Over here, it's 80 to 83-ish. I think that's like kind of the range right now. So, again, there's a pretty substantial difference between the two. I know a couple of degrees might not make a huge difference to you, but tropical storms and hurricanes need 80-plus degree Fahrenheit weather to be able to kind of, survive in terms of, or even develop at all. So, it can maintain its strength a little bit over that water, but it's not going to be that substantial. So, yeah. Stuffs mosquitoes, honestly, That's one of the positives with the with what Ian happened for me at least. We didn't really see any impacts that substantial when I had Ian, but it was honestly, you know, the wind felt amazing where I was. Didn't get a whole lot of rain, and you know, after the long 6 or 7 hour stream that I had that one night when it made landfall, I went outside and it just felt amazing to be outside with the wind and no mosquitoes. It just felt great. But obviously, you know, that's kind of like, it's almost like after you see a bunch of severe weather, like you have this cold front, for example, that rolls through, all this severe weather that's ongoing here, and then all the colder air ushering behind it, the wind, the clouds are gone. It feels amazing. Like it's kind of one of those kind of feelings sometimes. Hey, thank you, Mystic, again for the $1.99. Buy a hot dog while you're at the gas station after the fees. I don't know if that'll get me a hot dog to the YouTube fees. Appreciate it though. Okay, it really has more to do with the characteristics of what a tropical storm is. So that's more of just characteristics wise, what the different terms mean. Yeah, typically the subtropical systems just don't have that much convection. I mean, if we look 24 hours ago, which I can't go that far back, there was like no convection with this at all. It was just a bunch of wind. And then over the last 24 hours, it's developed a lot more convection. It isn't even that still that impressive, but it does have some more convection than it had at one time. So, yeah, it more has to just do with the convection in terms of a subtropical system versus a tropical system. Again, this was subtropical about 24 hours ago. I think even this morning it was, but more convection is built in now. We actually are starting to see a little bit more of that as well on the east side of this now. Here's your tropical storm. So this is more convection building up now. Starting to see a little bit more near the eye as well of where that is. So yeah, looking at right now. It is interesting though. How underrated gas station food is. Okay. I just tried drinking with the cap on. Some gas stations have good food. Some. If you ever been to a Buc-ee's, they're not too bad. Palm Coast, more going to be a wind threat for you, Lisa. Just gusty winds. If you're right along the coast, you could potentially see storm surge up to 5 feet, so be prepared for that. But otherwise, more of just a wind gust threat at this point. Maybe up to 40 to 50 miles per hour. Or, excuse me, up to 50 to 60 miles per hour. Hey, Clocks, how you doing? Welcome back. I've never heard of that jelly. Caden, it makes a pretty big difference. I mean, 5 miles per hour is the way that the National Hurricane Center rates tropical storms and hurricanes. You know, they have a whole scale, so you have to kind of go and base everything off of the, you know, if a Category 1 hurricane has, you know, 90 or 105 mile per hour winds, for example, I just said Category 1 hurricane. I mean, a Category 2 hurricane has 110 mile per hour winds, but it's only 1 mile per hour away from being a Category 3 hurricane. Does it really make that big of a difference? Well, it can. I mean, that's how they just rate the, you know, the category hurricanes. And it's more because of the damage that it can cause and stuff like that. So a Category 2 hurricane in comparison to a Category 3 can be pretty different in terms of the wind speeds and stuff like that, but that's just how their scale works. I mean, if you really want to make your own scale, you could, but nobody would really follow it. Most people like the current scale. I like the scale. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the current scale of tropical storm, hurricane, you know, Category 1 hurricane, Category 2, Category 3, that sort of thing. I think everything's fine. I like the scale. Some people do debate like the EF scale, but in terms of tornadoes, but that's just a whole nother story. So I think that one's fine too. We actually, by the way, for those that are wondering, when we covered the Idabel tornado, that was an EF4 tornado, by the way, in Clarksville, Texas. So there was actually an EF4 tornado from that outbreak that we had on Friday. Zach, it's just on for, I don't know. It's on. Let me turn it. I'll turn it a little bit down. It's just so people don't really spam. Like, I put slow mode on whenever I stream now, just so spamming isn't really a thing. Hey, Rainbow, how you doing? Welcome back. When Ian was on Florida, what category was it? Do you mean when it was over like the central portions of Florida? Was it category 1 near Orlando, I think, or just south of Orlando? It was still a category 1 hurricane. Yeah, it was still a hurricane for a decent amount of time inland, and it eventually weakened into a strong tropical storm once it entered the Atlantic Ocean. So, hey, have a good night, Mystic. Appreciate your couple of super chats. Have a good night. New Boston tornado, I think, was actually an EF2. I could be wrong on that, but I think it was an EF2, which is kind of a little bit surprising. A lot of people were surprised by that. It looked like a much stronger tornado than an EF2, but I could again be wrong. But yeah, the Idabel tornado, which was really where Clarksville was actually the tornado that had EF4 damage. So there was an EF4 tornado officially, that outbreak that we had on Friday. Yeah, the tornado outbreak was pretty crazy. We were live for about 7 hours covering that. That was pretty crazy to say the least. Yeah, I mean, if you go over to my Facebook page, if you have Facebook, feel free to go check it out. I have a lot of photos on Facebook, like a lot. So if you want to check out some of the photos, I'll put the link in chat real quick. Go check that out. Again, there's a bunch of photos and videos on there. And also, by the way, actually, I haven't mentioned this on stream yet, but we actually had a TikTok get 1.6 million views, which was kind of crazy. Which I guess that's a little bit more common, but one of my TikToks got 1.6 million views, which was pretty miraculous. And it wasn't even my video. It was actually somebody that gave me permission to post their video, and blew up like crazy on TikTok. Pretty miraculous. TikTok getting a lot of views on a TikTok video is, I feel like, pretty common. For most people, at least. No, Drew, no. That outbreak, or the severe weather expected on Thursday, nothing into comparison this event. TikTok doesn't pay me anything for those views, so it doesn't really matter. It's just kind of, I guess, a cool little feature or whatever, but yeah, you don't really get paid on TikTok unless you have a certain threshold of followers and all this other stuff, which now we have 2,000 followers on TikTok, so that's pretty miraculous. Yes, Ethan, you will see impacts in Melbourne. Well, whether this makes a direct landfall there is a question mark, but I would still expect some pretty hefty impacts in terms of wind gusts there for sure. Yeah, YouTube's different. YouTube actually pays you for views, but yeah, TikTok doesn't pay you a dime. Unless you have certain thresholds or whatever, which I don't even know what those are. Can't remember. Cannot remember on that one. Actually, I like YouTube Shorts more. I've been using YouTube Shorts a little bit more. I like them a little bit more. But honestly, like YouTube Shorts even, I don't like that much, because they just don't really give you I mean, it's not about the money, but it's like the way that they distribute your views is really weird. Like the first like hour, you can get a huge spike of views, and you can get like the 10,000 views, and you're like, this is gonna go viral. All of a sudden, after an hour and 10 minutes, like a couple of minutes after it has this huge spike, it just flattens out. The graph literally looks like this. If we go and kind of put this in a little perspective here, let me just go a little bit further to the southwest here. So this is a little graph. So let's just say this is minute 0, this is minute 60, and this is minute 90. All right, this is what the graph looks like. This is like, let's just say 10,000 views here. All right, 10,000. This is what the graph will look like. It'll literally look like that. It'll have this huge spike for about 5 to 10 minutes. It's literally what YouTube Shorts do. It does. It's such a weird little thing. And yeah, I mean, I don't know why it's like such a brief amount of time. Unless it really is a really good short, it might last like 20 to 30 minutes. It's weird. But yeah, I've had a few YouTube Shorts, and a few of them, all of them have done that sort of trend. So it's so weird. No, they don't give you anything for shorts, really. I could care less. I mean, I really don't care about the money. Shorts are just... I like doing shorts, like a little short forecast or something like that. They're kind of fun to do, but there's no really benefit for money by any means. It's just for fun. I enjoy doing shorts, though. They're fun. They're fun to do. I just don't do them that often because I just don't have time for it. Because a short typically only takes me like 5 minutes, but like, you know, I make a forecast typically that takes like an hour every day, so those sort of things. No, Drew, I do not expect that. I literally have no expectation that the Thursday event will change at all. I think it's going to stay a slight risk. I don't see it going any higher. It's not an event that's even. I wouldn't even be surprised if it got downgraded to a marginal threat tomorrow. I really wouldn't. It's not that concerning of an event, in my opinion. It looked a bit more concerning earlier today or even yesterday, but trends have obviously kind of shaped it to be a lot less of a tornado sort of situation. I know today's video was more centered around the title, at least, was more centered around the winter storm and the tornado potential, but it just does not have that potential, it seems like, anymore. It's definitely dropped a bit. So water vapor imagery, yeah, I can show you that real quick. The water vapor, it's the water vapor. Got the dry sector on the south end here as well. Kind of a wide view of it as well across the United States. This is a full look at it, so instead of having it cut off, there you go. That is the water vapor around it. Have a good night, Jelly. About to do the same thing. Direct landfall, odds of making direct landfall West Palm Beach are pretty low. Again, it's possible. I mean, if I were to give you like a % chance, which I don't really ever do this, but of it making landfall, this Port St. Lucie probably is like a 25-30% chance of it making landfall. It's probably higher than that, honestly. Palm Bay is probably closer to like 15-20%. And then West Palm Beach would probably be in the same kind of boat, maybe 15%-ish. Again, that's the percentages, though. It doesn't even really make any sense. Honestly, anywhere in this area is designated to be about a 70% chance or so of it making landfall. But I would say most likely this is going to make landfall in Port St. Lucie, or maybe as far south as West Palm Beach, maybe as far north as Palm Bay. I'm not even going to really, I can't really put percentages on it because percentages are kind of hard to do with that sort of thing. All right, well, that's going to do it for the stream. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, I might have a live stream tomorrow. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you've not already. Turn on post notifications. Plan is, again, I might do a little storm chasing stream tomorrow, so have notifications turned on. If I do go live for that, it'll be around 2 p.m.-ish or so. If I do, again, it's not guaranteed. I'll keep you updated, though, on Discord and Twitter if I do. Follow those platforms as well with the link in the description below, and I'll keep you updated with the latest. Appreciate everybody tuning in today. Have a great, safe rest of your night. We will see you guys